Kakhaber Kemoklidze is the former head of the National Security Council and the former head of the government administration in Georgia. He's joining me now from Tbilisi. Thanks so much, as always, for joining us on this news hour. Do you think Russia is changing its military tactic now by increasing air attacks because its ground offensive is slowing down somewhat and increasing those air raid attacks on cities that it's not usually targeted before, like Kiev, like Lviv?
First of all, thank you very much for having me, and Happy New Year at the same time. I don't think that Russia is changing the tactics. I think the strategy is pretty simple, and it has two major goals. On one hand, they want to show to Ukraine that they still have the missiles and they still want to talk with them with the position of power. And this is one of the major targets, let's say major goals of those very active and very largely damaging at the same time missile strikes. And on the other hand, from the tactical standpoint, I think they also want to fully destroy the infrastructure which is very vital for the military industrial production, which is at the same time extremely important to support the battlefields on the ground from the Ukrainian side. And I think one another, let's say, goals for those missile attacks during the New Year Eve and during past 24 hours is also the symbolism. For the post-Soviet countries, the countries who left the Soviet Union, New Year Eve is a sacrosanct. In some countries, it is more important than the Orthodox Christmas Eve. And I think the striking Kiev and the large cities and the biggest major cities in Ukraine during the New Year Eve was having this particular message that we can still damage you in the very sacrosanct days. Okay,
so it's symbolic as well as being deadly, those airstrikes. Do you think Moscow is trying to force Kiev's hand here into holding talks by increasing the airstrikes and attacks, where Kiev is not going to have any other choice but to go to the negotiating table?
I think they want Ukrainian society at some point to rethink their moral and ambitions at the same time, to hold the line, to fight for their independence. I think they want them to somehow involve into the negotiations, because from a strategic standpoint, I don't think that the Russians are gaining the some sort of like big advantages. In this regard, for them, it is really, really important to make Ukrainians to sit at the table and negotiate. And as long as they are holding extra territories, which was occupied right after 24th of February of 2022, for them, it's going to be much easier to make Ukrainians to sacrifice on some of their vital strategic interests. Mm-hmm. And I think Ukrainians and official Kiev is very effectively combating in the battlefields and gaining more and more territories. And I do hope that this line and strategy will continue within the next couple of months.
Well, in the next couple of months, do you think Moscow is going to push for a bigger ground offensive and bring in those soldiers that it conscripted essentially in September last year, who apparently are still being trained by Russian forces? So in the coming months, they could have more soldiers to now get onto the battlefield and fight for them.
Very good question indeed. Despite the fact that Kremlin announced that allegedly they have closed down the official conscription process within the Russian Federation, on the ground, it did not appear in such way. I think they are still conscripting the people. And at the same time, there are large indications that the official conscription might be renewed within the upcoming weeks, because they need extra power, extra manpower to support the battlefields in Ukrainian front. And this might be coming really, really, really soon in the upcoming weeks or possibly months. Why they need it? This is the question for many, many analysts. I think it is pretty obvious. They have lost a lot of people. They lost a lot of infrastructure, a lot of military infrastructure. And to support the battlefield, you need extra manpower. I think that's exactly what is happening right now in Russia.
going to be a very interesting next few weeks. Kakhaber Kemoklidze, live to us there from Tbilisi. As always, thank you for your time.
Pleasure is mine.